Hi guys, and welcome to Katie's Insights, where I give my insights on all kinds of things, including news, business, finance, entertainment, current events, and most importantly right now, stimulus. And we have new updates from my video from earlier, so if you didn't see it, make sure and go check it out. I have a video from earlier where we detail exactly what is happening with stimulus. And as you guys know, we've been waiting to hear from Pelosi. We've been waiting to hear from her in regards to Trump countering a $1.8 to $1.9 trillion offer. Well, we heard. And as you guys know, if you watch the video, we heard, and she said basically, no way, not going to do it. On top of that, now people are divided in the Senate. Even the Republicans, there's like 27 Republicans who are saying, we're not going to do this in the Senate. And the Senate is furious with Trump. So it's getting really interesting what's going on right now. But what we want to update on is we heard from our curmudgeon, Larry Kudlow, our lovable curmudgeon, who isn't always right and basically is one big talking mouthpiece for Trump. But he dropped some interesting news about where the Senate is at, where they are at with negotiations, and what he said we could be getting. We could be getting more money than what we're expecting. But then again, as I've said before, can you actually believe Larry Kudlow in some of the stuff that he is saying? Because again, he's a mouthpiece for Trump. I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, but when Trump is showing to the American people that he changes his mind in 5 times in a 12-hour period, it looks a little suspect. Also considering Larry is one of the ones that's talking about how great the economy is doing, how great the American people are doing, when pretty sure we're suffering. Pretty sure that we need help. So I want to go ahead and go into that. But before I do, guys, if you could do me a big favor and help all of these videos and like this video, any video you see like, then make sure and like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you've subscribed, make sure and hit that notification bell and turn on all notifications so you can be able to see when I upload content and you can get first dibs at it. Also, leave a comment, leave as many as you want. We definitely encourage and we love seeing as many comments as possible. And please share this content with as many people as you know that are struggling right now. People on unemployment, waiting for unemployment, waiting for stimulus checks, SBA loan and grant issues, and everything in between. I've got tons of tools and tons of resources to help you and the people you know through this difficult time. And I would love the opportunity to do that. Add me on Facebook, Katie's Insight, join the group, Katie's Corner, which will be changed to Katie's Insight. Ask all the stimulus questions you want. Now, let's get into this. I'm going to try to do a very brief history because you guys know what's happened. We were just dead. Everything was dead when it comes to a stimulus bill. The House passed their $2.2 trillion bill, which the Republicans have all said no way about. So finally, private talks started again. Mnuchin and Pelosi have been talking. The president said, we're canceling stimulus talks. And then within a couple hours said, Nancy, sign something. Less than 12 hours later, he comes out with his people saying, I want a stimulus deal. I want it now. He has the White House communications director go on and say, we're only doing a standalone small bill. And then he goes on 2 different shows to tell everybody, I'm going to do a bigger bill than the Democrats. I want more than the Democrats of the $2.2 trillion, and I want it to go to the people. And our heads are spinning and we're going, what is happening? Now, let me break down what I think we've been seeing. Him saying canceling talks, negotiation tactic against Nancy, that I think to some extent backfired, which is why he backtracked and said, sign the deal, just sign a deal. I'm ready to send out checks. Because what happened wasn't him doing that. It makes it look like all the responsibility is on his shoulders about the fact that we don't have a deal. And that makes him look really bad before the election. So on top of that, let me kind of explain my interpretation of watching Trump and having seen how he acts and what he does. I'd like to explain my interpretation of some of what we are hearing. I think when he says, I want a bigger stimulus deal and bigger checks, I think he's referring to, I would be more than happy to give more money if he knows it's going to the American people and not just to bail out states for being poorly run or poorly mismanaged. I think he's saying, I'd be happy to give even more money if it went into our pockets. He'd be happy to do more money if it went to stimulus checks or unemployment, or as we've been hearing, things to help out small businesses, PPP loans. So when we hear that, I think probably it's his wish, or it's the political narrative he's trying to spin right now. It's the perception he wants people to see that he actually wants people to have more money. The problem is the Republicans want people to have nothing and the Democrats act like they want people to have something, but then they want to take it for themselves. It's crazy. It's a crazy, crazy situation. And by the way, please remember, when I say Republicans and Democrats, I'm not talking about you fine people who watch me who lean one way or another. I'm talking about the crazy people at the top or the crazy extremists. which most of you watching, I don't think are that, because most of you have a head on your shoulders and you can somewhat weigh and disseminate information. Even if we disagree, we can probably do it somewhat respectfully. So just to kind of give you an update, because I've had some people that take it like as a personal offense, and I'm like, no, it's not meant that way, trust me. Also, I have something in my eye, so if I keep rubbing my eye, that's why it looks like that. So then where are we at? Well, Trump comes up same day, Friday, and says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and approve a $1.8 to $1.9 trillion stimulus deal. This means we're between $300 billion and $400 billion away. We are, in terms of the government, we are very close. That's a massive amount of money when we hear it, but they are very, very close. We've been waiting to hear from Pelosi, and we heard from her yesterday. And Pelosi came out with a letter basically saying, not going to do it. Don't like it. Then we started hearing reports that we talked about in the earlier video that there were phone calls between Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats don't like it. The Republicans hate it. So here's the problem that we are now faced with when it comes to all of this. If that is the case, how do we pass a deal? Because here's the thing. Unless Trump pulls magic out of his butt, right? And he just starts spinning something so we can get checks, we have to have the House and the Senate pass something. Now, Trump can do executive orders, which I have been talking about. And I've been saying, I think before the election, he's going to have to do it. If he doesn't, it's a huge missed opportunity. But he's going to have to do some type of executive order. But even the executive orders, as we've already seen, can only go so far because we need the House and the Senate to pass money for that type of money to be spent. We need both entities on board. And right now, nobody is on board. In fact, when I was going over what happened earlier with the phone calls, Meadows had told the Republicans in the Senate, okay, well, you'll be attending my funeral if I have to go back and tell Trump all of this, because I think Trump is under the impression that they can just get a deal done with him and the Democrats behind closed doors and it'll be settled. But they have to sell it. They have to sell it in the House and the Senate. They have to sell it in both places for anything to be able to happen. Can they do that? And there is a lot of back and forth. And what we're hearing now is there may be a situation where instead of selling it to Republicans, because if I've been reporting and we've been talking about, and you guys know, the Republicans can't get on the same page with anything, which is why they haven't been able to get anything passed. Nothing close. In fact, they were fighting, they were outbreaking. It was a couple months ago, I think. They were having outbreaks at lunch of like verbal altercations. Like they were having like verbal fights with each other, which of course, would we expect any less? No. So that's where they're at right now. Now, I figured we're going to hear from some of the talking heads, right? Because they, as I've said, and you guys know this, they use the media to do their negotiations. And sure enough, we heard from curmudgeon, my favorite curmudgeon, Larry Kudlow. My least favorite, the one I don't like, is Mitch McConnell. But I think Larry's a decent guy. I bet if you sat down and had a beer with him, I can't drink. I always do this. I always envision certain people be great to sit down and have a beer with, even though I don't and can't drink. But if my health was back, I would have a strong, like Coca-Cola with a carbonation. I love the bubbles. I love it when the bubbles like sting my nose. I don't know why, but it makes me so happy. But that'll be probably another few years before I can do that with all the health stuff I have. As you guys know, right now I have almost no carbs. There's like a little bit of wiggle room because some things are going to have carbs in it regardless, like certain cheeses and things, but it has to be the right kind. I think I have to have it like under 10 or something. And almost zero sugar, except for certain things that are found in certain types of meats. So yeah, that won't be for me anytime soon. One thing I have found, y'all, is organic green leaf stevia, green stevia leaf powder. I can't do like the artificial or the white stuff, but that I can make a tea with coconut milk and put some of that in there. It's still pretty gross, but like it's the closest thing I can get. But I want to go ahead and I want to go over all this, guys, with you because we have information and you guys know I love hearing from Larry. Larry gives some good insights, but as I've said about so many things over the last couple of days, get a few grains of salt and a couple buckets of water to not dehydrate, because with Larry's going to be a mouthpiece for Trump and making everything look good for Trump. Now, Larry is actually, he's an economist. A lot of people don't know this. He's like one of the top economists in the country that helps Trump, but he's very pro-Trump and he very much likes to help, likes to spin Trump in a good light. Now, whether or not he's, in his personal life, he thinks he's super pro-Trump, I think his job is to try to get the American people on board with where we need to go economically. But a lot of times, his information is either a little bit late or he's always on the negative side, but I think he still means well, right? So anyways, let's pull up an article of information, then we're going to go over directly what Mr. Larry says, because we can always infer some good stuff. This is from thehill.com. It says, Trump economic advisor, Senate Republicans will go along with White House stimulus proposal despite their pushback. And this is interesting because Larry says they're going to go along with the White House stimulus proposal, even though on this phone call with Meadows and Republicans, the majority of the Republicans were like, absolutely not, go kick rocks. So it's interesting because I think because of the backlash of that happening and people seeing that, Mayor Larry Kudlow has to kind of play damage control, and he has to be like, well, I think if we get behind it, it's going to happen, because this is what they have to do. Again, they use the media for their narratives and negotiations. So let's go ahead and let's dive into this. This says, President Trump's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, said Sunday that Senate Republicans will go along with the $1.8 trillion White House stimulus proposal, despite their vocal pushback. Kudlow told CNN's State of the Union that the White House expects support from Republicans in the upper chamber. A source told The Hill on Saturday that several senators expressed significant concerns about the proposal's cost in a call with administration officials. The White House economic advisor said on Sunday he does not think the virus stimulus bill is dead. Republicans in the Senate put up their own bill a few weeks ago, and they got 53 votes. And I think it was. So they united, he said. I think if an agreement can be reached, they will go along with it. Kudlow also criticized Democrats, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi, for their intransience over funding unemployment assistance, small business loans, and stimulus checks in individual bills or an overall bill. Well, I'm not talking about your Democratic friends. CNN told Jake Tapper pushed back. I'm talking about 20 Senate Republicans who were mad at Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and saying that the proposal of $1.8 trillion was way too much. The White House economic advisor noted the president would go beyond the cost of the current proposal to fund assistance for unemployed people, small business loans, and stimulus checks. President Trump actually has always said, I have heard him say it in the Oval Office, as far as the key elements are concerned, the checks, the unemployment assistance, the small business assistance, we have got to help airlines out. He would go further, Kudlow said. I think if we could get this thing settled on the Democrats' side, we would get it settled on the Republicans' side, he said. There will still be further efforts of negotiation perhaps today, but certainly this coming week. The D's are holding this thing up, he added. And this was from the State of the Union. It says, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says he doesn't think the stimulus deal is dead, despite the president's $1.8 trillion proposal facing opposition from the Senate GOP. So then we go on. Kudlow also told CNN that he doesn't think the economic recovery in the U.S. is dependent upon a stimulus bill. And I'm just sitting here like, at some point, y'all, especially with the airlines going under, and now, like, we heard from the CEO of TGI Fridays recently that the whole restaurant industry is about to collapse. Can you imagine how many jobs that is? So I feel like they're kind of in this imaginary bubble of just super positivity about the economy. If you don't do something to help it soon, gonna be huge, everlasting issues. Or what they have said, what we have heard from all the top economists, they've said it'll be lasting permanent damage. When Tapper said the Federal Reserve chairman disagreed, Kudlow said he's essentially saying the same thing. Targeted assistance would be a good idea. Yeah, that's not what he has said. He didn't say it would be a good idea. He said we absolutely need it or we're going to have a really, really bad economy and it's going to be hard to turn it around and we're going to have a lot of people suffering. That is what the Fed chair has said repeatedly. So for him to say that is such BS. We'll get into that in a minute. Kudlow's remarks come after the White House proposed a $1.8 trillion virus relief package, a higher amount than the $1.6 trillion offered last week, and rejected by Pelosi and Democrats. Several Senate Republicans blasted the proposal in a call with White House officials, with Senator Marsha Blackburn labeling it a death knell for the GOP ahead of the elections. Okay, guys, so now I want to hear it directly from Kudlow. I have his interview. Let's pull it up, and then I have my notes. We're going to get into it. Let's take a look.
Joining me now to talk about that package, the president's top economic advisor, Larry Kudlow. Larry, good to see you as always. So let's talk about the stimulus. To counter the Democrats' $2.2 trillion proposal, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin offered a $1.8 trillion proposal, but more than 20 Republican senators privately blasted that as a betrayal, a death knell. We're 23 days from Election Day. Is the stimulus deal dead?
Well, no, I don't think it's dead at all. I spoke to Secretary Mnuchin last evening. Look, don't forget, the Republicans in the Senate put up their own bill a few weeks ago and got 53 votes, I think it was, so they united. I think if an agreement can be reached, they will go along with it. Look, the issue here, and I don't understand this, my Democratic friends, Speaker Pelosi and so forth, we're asking for some targeted areas of assistance that would help this recovery. It is a V-shaped recovery, but there are key areas that could help. One, let's add on to unemployment assistance. The president's executive order is not going to go forever. Two, everybody in the world wants additional loans to small business. They will be forgivable loans, the so-called PPP program. Those are things that everybody absolutely wants. Number three, the president is in favor of direct mail checks to provide, again, some more temporary economic assistance. We are in a very strong rebound. I hope we get to that later. But the fact is, these are simple things. They have bipartisan support. We could do it as standalone bills or an omnibus bill or whatever, but I do not understand the intransigence from my Democratic friends.
Well, I'm not talking about your Democratic friends. I'm talking about 20 Senate Republicans who were mad at Secretary Mnuchin and saying that the proposal of $1.8 trillion was way too much. They called it a death knell. I think that was Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee called it a death knell. I guess the big question is going forward, you have to get something through the House and the Senate. Are you willing to pass a relief bill without support from a majority of Senate Republicans? In other words, you get the majority of Democrats in the House, you get Democrats in the Senate, and maybe 10 or 20 Republicans in the Senate, and then it goes to the president's desk. Would he be willing to sign that?
Well, look, I don't want to get into the specific legislative strategy, Jake, but I will say from the president's remarks late last week, he's happy on the key targeted areas that I mentioned, small business loans, unemployment, and so forth. He would actually go beyond what some of the Democratic numbers are. He may not do it for the entire package, but for those key targeted areas that would truly help the recovery, by the way, get kids back to school and reopen businesses. I think if we could get this thing settled on the Democrat side, we will get it settled on the Republican side. There will still be further efforts at negotiation, perhaps today, but certainly this coming week. So I don't think we're really, the D's are holding this thing up. Look, it's just a question of this. It's not so much the election per se. I know this is the political season. I get that. It's just getting Americans through a difficult period of time. We've seen a flood of blockbuster improvement numbers across the board on the economy, but there's really no reason why we can't add to that some additional assistance in the next 3 months. And I think you can get a deal. I'm not saying it's easy. Secretary Mnuchin, very dear friend of mine, as you know, he's a very good negotiator. Let's see what he and Speaker Pelosi come up with.
But you agree that a stimulus package needs to pass. There needs to be one, right? And you're hoping to do it in the next 3 weeks.
I don't think, Jake, I mean, I don't want to parse, but I don't think the recovery is dependent on it. Look, we've had
that's not what the Fed chair says.
Job increases. Well, Fed shares essentially, I think, saying the same thing. Targeted assistance would be a good idea. But look, we've seen numbers across the board just in the past week. Booming housing starts, supply managers for manufacturing and for services. We've seen automobiles surging. We've seen manufacturing. We think we created a new 700,000 jobs in manufacturing. These are really strong numbers. Inventories have to be rebuilt.
Mark Zandi of Moody's says that if a stimulus bill isn't passed soon, the the country is going to start shedding jobs again.
Well, Mark is a friend of mine, but he's always a naysayer when it comes to Republican policies. I will say this. The Atlanta Fed's GDP Now model is showing 35%. That's for the third quarter. That's a big number. Blue chip consensus, private blue chip forecasters, I think, moved up to 29%. We would be thrilled with plus 20% in the second half of the year. My point is this: we are in a strong rebound. Lower taxes and lower regulations going way back are still in place, and businesses are reopening. We are learning to deal with the virus in a targeted, safe, prevented way. So it's not dependent. All I'm saying is some targeted assistance would go a long way right now.
We're not learning to live with the virus, Larry. We just had 4 days in a row of more than 50,000 infections. The death rate is the highest in the world. But let's focus on the economic aspect, because that's your area of expertise. I guess I
just want to say, just Jake, just 1 second. I want to clarify, living with the virus. Look, 5,000 experts just signed a petition led by people from Harvard, Stanford, Oxford University. These are scientists, these are doctors, these are healthcare workers who say we can deal with this virus going on while we're getting new therapies, we're getting new vaccines are coming around. It's not just living with the virus. As long as we protect the most vulnerable, as long as we preserve the key guidelines, yes, we can get through this. We are not going to shut down the whole economy again. There is no reason for that. We will take care of the vulnerable. That's the key point.
Well, there's so much that you just said, but again, I had you on to talk about the economy, not healthcare matters. In terms of obeying by the key guidelines, I mean, you might want to tell the guy in the building behind you, but that's a separate issue. Let's talk about President Trump and the stimulus package, okay? Because President Trump, frankly, has been all over the map on his position. He halted talks completely, but then I want you to take a listen to what the president said on Friday about the size of this stimulus bill.
I would like to see a bigger stimulus package, frankly, than either the Democrats or the Republicans are offering.
So that's the president saying he wants a bigger package. Speaker Pelosi is currently offering a $2.2 trillion deal. The president wants a bigger package than that. So are Secretary Mnuchin now going to try to offer a bigger deal than a $2.2 trillion proposal?
He may. Secretary Mnuchin is up to $1.8 trillion. So the bid and the offer is narrowing somewhat between the two sides. President Trump actually has always said, I mean, I've heard him say it in the Oval, as far as the key elements are concerned, the checks, the unemployment assistance, the small business assistance, we've got to help airlines out, he would go further. He's always said that. He knows that we need as much power for economic recovery as possible. It's not just recovery in 3 weeks, it's recovery to the end of the year and beyond in a possible second term. So I think Secretary Mnuchin, who's a very good negotiator, will be carrying the president's message.
So, but Larry, I mean, a consultant to an advisor to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told the Washington Post that he thinks any deal that's in the range of $2 trillion, Mnuchin's at $1.8 trillion, Pelosi's at $2.2 trillion, and you just said it's possible that Mnuchin and Trump will have a proposal of more than $2.2 trillion. But McConnell's aide says that they think there will only be 10 Republican votes in the Senate for anything in the neighborhood of $2 trillion. So how do you get it passed? That's the question. You've already lost most of the Republicans in the Senate.
Well, I don't know who we've lost. There are a lot of permutations and combinations. There's a lot of commentary. I get that, Jake. I'm not going to sit here and negotiate or say this is okay, that's not okay. That's Mr. Mnuchin's role, as well as Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, who's also an excellent negotiator. I'm just saying we are putting our best foot forward on the table. We have been offering compromise after compromise. We've already passed a Republican bill in the Senate. Now we've raised the ante on some just key targeted points, not everything else. We're not talking about giveaways to state and locals, fixing pension funds, harvesting mail ballots that have nothing to do with COVID or the economy. Let's see what happens. I'm not going to negotiate today. Let's see what happens.
Let's turn to the event at the White House with hundreds of people not social distancing on the White House lawn, though they were wearing masks, thankfully. I want you to take a listen to what Dr. Fauci said this week about that Rose Garden event for Judge Barrett on September 26.
The data speak for themselves. We had a super spreader event in the White House, and it was in a situation where people were crowded together and were not wearing masks. So the data speak for themselves.
President Trump himself has said he may have contracted the virus at, quote, big events at the White House. But now the president's hitting the campaign trail. Florida tomorrow, Pennsylvania, Iowa. How is this not a risk to the health, if not lives, of your own supporters?
Well, look at, on that big do on the White House lawn, the operations people signed off on it. I have great respect for Dr. Tony Fauci, who's a longtime friend of mine. I'm not the medical scientist. Here's what I know. As you said at the top, today, Dr. Sean Conley, or last night, released a document that said the president is healthy, he's abided by the CDC, he is no longer contagious. I think that fits the bill. I have not seen the president in the last few days. I have spoken to him on the phone. A lot of people have been with him, said he's fine, he's peppy, he's been smart again, and he really is in healthy condition. So it seems like the conditions are being met, and he will go on ahead.
I'm expressing concern about his supporters' health. His supporters' health. I mean, you're in Connecticut, and let me say, Larry, as somebody who likes you and wants you to live a long, long life, I hope that you stay safe. I don't know that the people at the White House are as concerned about people who work at the White House and Trump's own supporters as I am. It's not safe to have big rallies.
Well, I appreciate it, Jake, what you said earlier. It's very kind. There will be masks at these rallies. There will be social distancing at these rallies. There will be appropriate testing. You know, a lot of these places you get tested on the way in. Most of all, we have to stick to the hygiene issues, washing your hands and face and so forth. These things can be done. We can do that. And that's what the experts have said. That's why I wanted to raise that Great Barrington Compromise document. It needs to see the light of day. It's like 5,000 people that are saying basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think he can go through with it. I think his message, Jake, look, you know what?
Yeah.
Growth,
prosperity,
we gotta
go, Larry.
Abundance, optimism.
Okay.
Low taxes and low regulations will revive this economy. He did it once. He'll do it a second time.
Larry,
thank you.
Stay safe and stay healthy. Good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right, guys, a bit of a long one, so I have a good amount of notes. Let's just go ahead and dive in. So, Jake Tapper says on stimulus, to counter the Democrats' 2.2, Mnuchin offered 1.8 trillion with the bill, but more than 20 Republican senators publicly blasted that as a betrayal, a death knell. By the way, I asked this last video, what's a death knell? Sound off in the comments. Let me know what it is, because you guys educated me on them quivers. So he says, we are 20 days from the election. Is the stimulus deal dead? Larry says, no, not dead at all. I spoke with Mnuchin last evening. Republicans put up their own bill in the Senate and got 53 votes, and they united. I think if an agreement can be reached, the Republicans in the Senate will go along with it. The issue here is my Democratic friends, Pelosi and so forth. We are asking for targeted assistance in certain areas to help the recovery. It is a V-shaped recovery. There are key areas if they could help. Number one, add on additional unemployment assistance, so the unemployment stimulus. Executive orders won't last forever. Well, they've almost all run out. That's another thing. I'm like, that's kind of misleading, Larry, because they're almost all done and you know it. So there we go. Number two, PPP loans for small businesses and forgivable loans. These are things that everyone wants. Number three, President is in favor for direct mail checks again. Temporary economic assistance. We are in a strong economic rebound. But these are simple things. These aren't simple things. We have bipartisan support. We can do standalone bills or omnibus bills. I don't understand the intransigence of my Democratic friends. By the way, I do think it's funny. Did you hear the statement? We can do standalone or omnibus. When just, what was it, Friday, Larry, you were saying big deal or go home, and now you're given wiggle room. Why? Is it because Trump really isn't sure what's going to happen and what he's going to do? Again, you have to look at the language of some of what they're saying. So now the fact that he's kind of relenting a little bit on how it needs to be, I find very telling. So, and then Jake Tapper says, I'm not talking about your Democratic friends. I'm talking about the 27 or so Republicans who are mad at Mnuchin, who said 1.8 trillion is much too much, calling it a death knell. You have to get something through the House and the Senate. You willing to pass a bill without the majority of the Senate Republicans? So you could have Democrats in the House and the Senate, and then maybe 10 to 20 Republicans in the Senate. Would Trump be willing to sign off on something like that? And so then Larry says, look, I don't want to get into specific legislative strategy. He is happy about key areas I've talked about, small businesses, checks, and unemployment. He would go beyond what the Democrat numbers are, not for the whole package, but for these key targeted areas, like getting kids back to school and opening businesses. If we can get it settled on the Democrat side, we can get it settled on the Republican side. That's very telling, and I'll go into that in just a second. He says there will be further negotiations today and later this week. This is being held up. It's a question of this, not the politics, but getting the Americans through a difficult time. We've seen a flood of great numbers across the board with the economy, but there's no reason we can't add that to the additional assistance. We can get a deal done, but it's not that easy. Mnuchin is a great friend and a great negotiator. Let's see what he and Pelosi can come up with. But look, when asked, are you going to try to just pass it with the Democrat support and not the Republicans? He's like, I'm not going to get into specific legislative strategy. I think the fact that he said that to me points to that is what they're thinking. And then he says, if we can get the Democrats on board, we can get the Republicans. I think we're seeing signs that what Jake Tapper might have said is correct. They may right now, they know. And here's the thing, as I said before, the Republicans are a mess. They can't get anything passed because nobody can get on the same side. But who is more united and unified? The Democrats. So wouldn't it be easier to go after the party that's united versus the party that's not? Just going to throw that out there. So he says, okay, so you agree we need a package. You're hoping to do it in 3 weeks. Jake Tapper says that. Larry says, I don't think the recovery is dependent upon it. Jake says, well, that's not what the Fed says. And then we just talked about this. He says, the Fed chair is saying the same thing. Targeted assistance is a good thing. No, they said we have to have it or we're going to be doomed. We've seen numbers across the board booming for housing, supply managers for manufacturing and servicing, automobile surging, manufacturing. We created 700,000 new jobs in manufacturing. Investors have to we have to have investors and we have to rebuild to keep these strong numbers. So he says, Mark Zandi at Moody says, if the stimulus bill isn't passed soon, the country will start shedding jobs again, which I think we've all been, it already is. Look at the airlines. Look at what's about to happen to the restaurant industry. And we've all been saying this. So he says, Mark is a friend of mine, but he is a naysayer when it comes to Republican policy. The Atlanta Fed says they are showing 35% GDP, which is a good number. We would have been thrilled with 20+% in the second half of the year. My point is this. We are in a strong rebound. Lower taxes and lower regulation goes way back, but businesses are still reopening. We are learning to deal with the virus in a targeted way, a safe way. It's not dependent. All I'm saying is some targeted assistance is a good idea. We are learning to live with the virus in a targeted, safe way. And then Jake Tapper starts laughing. You'll see the article titles of this. He starts laughing and says, we're not learning to live with this virus, Larry. We just had 4 days in a row of 50,000 infections. It's just interesting to me because the numbers for certain deaths, like starvation, cancer, certain things are people who can't get medical help because they're uninsured, is so much higher than this. And yet they never care. Why is it the kind, tolerant, loving left only care when it benefits them? And by the way, not you people at the top, the crazy people. That's what I'm talking about. So he says, death rate is the highest in the world in this country. Let's focus on the economic aspect because that's where your area expertise is. And this was kind of like a little slap in the face to Larry, the way he said that, kind of like, don't talk about things you don't know about. Larry says, Jake, I want to clarify living with the virus. 5,000 experts just signed a petition led by people at Harvard, Stanford, and Oxford universities. Scientists and doctors and healthcare workers. This is what they have said. We can deal with this virus going on while we find new therapies and vaccines. It's not just living with the virus. As long as we protect the most vulnerable and protect key guidelines, we won't shut down the whole economy again, and we will take care of our vulnerable. And then Jake Tapper says, there's not much about what you just said. I had you on to talk the economy, not healthcare matters. Again, a little slap in the face. You don't know what you're talking about, Larry. In terms of abiding by the key guidelines, tell Trump that. Again, little slaps in the face to Larry. Trump and the stimulus package. Trump has been all over the map on this position. He halted talks completely, but then on Friday, he said the size of the bill, I'd like to see bigger stimulus package, frankly, the Democrats or the Republicans and what they're offering. That's the president saying he wants a bigger deal. Pelosi has us at 2.2 and he wants a bigger deal. Will Mnuchin go for a bigger deal than 2.2 trillion? He says he may. Mnuchin is up 1.8. The offer is narrowing amongst the two sides. Trump has always said, as far as key elements are concerned, unemployment checks, airline businesses, he would go further and has always said that. He knows we need as much power for the economic recovery as possible. Not just for 3 weeks, but end of the year and beyond. Mnuchin is a good negotiator and will carry the president's message. So there it is. I think we're hearing that they may be willing to go even higher. I feel like this is somewhat of a confirmation when he says he may. And with the president saying he wants to go higher, I think we have confirmation that this is coming to the pipeline. We'll have to wait and see, obviously. Or is this what they're putting out there because of executive orders? We'll have to see. So Larry, consultant to advisor Mitch McConnell, says that he thinks any deal that is above the 2.2 trillion range, Mnuchin is at 1.8, Pelosi 2.2. And you said and he doesn't think it's going to happen. And you said it's possible Mnuchin will go beyond 2.2. McConnell's aide says they think only 10 Republican votes in the Senate will be in the neighborhood of getting to 2.2 trillion. How do you get that passed? You've already lost most Republicans in the Senate. Larry says they don't know who we've lost. There's a lot of negotiations and permeations and combinations and commentary that needs to go on. I won't negotiate or say I think this is okay or not okay. That's for Mnuchin and Meadows to do, and they are both great negotiators. I'm just saying we are putting our best foot forward on the table. We offered compromise after compromise. We've passed a bill in the Senate. Now we raise the ante for key targeted assistance, not everything else. Not talking about giveaways to state and local, fixing pension funds, harvesting mail bailouts, assistance to people who maybe aren't supposed to be in the country. That doesn't help the economy. Let's see what happens. And then they said he transitions into event at the White House. I think it's funny that Jake Tapper was slapping him in the face about, well, you don't know anything about healthcare and now wants to transition to the virus. And healthcare matters. Interesting. He says, event at the White House with hundreds of people, not social distancing this weekend. Now, if you listen to Dr. Fauci and what he has said this week about the Rose Garden event on September 26th, this is what he said. Data speaks for itself. We had a super spreader event at the White House, a situation where people crowded together not wearing masks. Trump has said he may have gotten it from an event at the White House. How is this not a risk to the health and lives of your own supporters? Larry says. With that event, operations, people signed off. I have respect for Fauci, who is a friend, and I'm not a medical expert or scientist. Here's what I know. Sean Conley, who is Trump's doctor, released a document saying Trump is healthy, abiding by the CDC, and no longer contagious. So I think that fits the bill. I have not seen Trump in the last few days, but seen him or talked to him on the phone. Many people say he's fine, smart, peppy, and in good condition, back to his own self. And he will go on. Now, Jake Tapper says, I'm worried about his supporters' health. As someone like me, who likes you and wants you to live a long, healthy life, I hope you stay safe. I don't think he's concerned with his supporters' health or the people that work at the White House. I'm more concerned than he is. He shouldn't be having rallies because it's not safe. However, isn't this the same news organization that was talking about how great it was for people to go protest and riot? And I'm not talking about whether or not I think protesting or rioting is good or bad. I'm not getting into that debate right now. What I am saying is this news organization says one thing is okay, but another's not. And it bothers me. That's it, the hypocrisy. And so Larry says, I appreciate the kindness. There will be masks at the rallies, social distancing, appropriate testing. Many are going to get tested on the spot. Most of all, we have to stick to hygiene issues, washing hands and so forth. We can do that. This is what experts have said. That's why I want to raise the Great Barrington Compromise document. That's the 5,000 medical professionals that signed it. He says, many doctors are saying what I have said. He can go through with it. The message, growth, prosperity, abundance, optimism, lower taxes, lower regulation will revive the economy. He did it once, we'll do it a second time. So, again, the big key takeaways, except for like Jake Tapper just slapping him around the face, acting like he doesn't know what he's talking about, are that it looks like coming up in these bills, they may be going after Democrats more than they are Republicans in the Senate to get it passed, which would be an interesting strategy. They may go up beyond 2.2 trillion, which would be crazy. I wonder if that's going to happen. Those are the two big takeaways that I wanted to point out. And again, as always, we're just going to have to wait and see what these people do, if they're going to get their you-know-what together and actually help us through this. Fingers crossed that they will. Okay, guys, if you like this video, please give me a big thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, hit notifications so you can be notified daily what is coming to the pipeline for you and your stimulus money. Also, sound off in the comments. I want to hear everything. Let me know what you think and let me know what's going on when you hear all of this. The more comments, the better. And guys, please share this information with as many people as you know possible. People on unemployment, waiting for unemployment, waiting for stimulus checks, SBA loan and grant issues, and everything in between. Having issues paying your bills. I'll take it all because we have tons of tools And I've got tons of resources on this channel to help you guys through all of this, and I would love the opportunity to do that. And guys, the more you like, subscribe, comment, hit notifications, and share the content, the more my channel grows. The more my channel grows, I can do things to give back to you guys. We can get back to our $100 gift card giveaways. I'm thinking about doing another one here soon, but I just have to be very, very careful. So if you want me, because I used to put them out every single day, every video was a $100 gift card. So if you want me to be able to continue to do that, please continue to support the channel with all the things I said before. Also, add us on Facebook, Katie's Insight. Please go like the page, join the group. Katie's Corner will be changed to Katie's Insight. Go ask all the stimulus questions you want. All right, y'all, this has been too long. I'm going to end this here for now. This has been Katie, and thank you so much for listening to my insight on things. And until next time, take care, blessings. I'm so blessed to have you all in my life. I'm so blessed for all the people that watch me, and I'm so humbled every day I sign off on these videos. Take care, sending you guys a lot of love, and I'll continue to keep you updated. Bye-bye, guys.